Now I know that you may be thinking, what's he already talking about 2021 for? But as we now rapidly head towards November 2020, 2021 is not far away and will be on us before we even know it. And I'm sure that we're all looking forward to the end of what has been such a challenging year on a global scale and looking forward to a much brighter 2021. No matter if you're planning to go to the Philippines to be with your girlfriend or wife, or perhaps to find a Filipina while over there, or just to have a great time exploring this glorious country, one certainly needs to start thinking about things right now. And in this video, I'll take a look at being prepared to travel to the Philippines, specifically for those guys that are dating a Filipina. So be sure to stay with me here. One thing I know for certain by the so many comments I receive, and that is, there are many guys out there from countries all over the world who are really missing their Filipina girlfriends or wives. And no doubt, there are many Filipinas in the Philippines who are likewise missing being with their boyfriends or husbands. I often talk about not upgrading your relationship from chatmate to a dating relationship until you guys have met in person and have spent some good quality time together. And this still remains true. No doubt, with the current situation with borders closed, many are struggling and really want to fly out to meet their Filipina so the relationship can progress. And I really do think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel as we go out of 2020 and we move through the first few months of 2021. Simply, the world can't possibly stay closed off forever, even with no vaccine for this virus. It's just not sustainable for countries, businesses, which include airlines and tourism, as well as the average person like you and me. I believe many governments worldwide know this, and as we go into the new year, I do think we'll start to see some more promising signs. So with that being said, if you haven't started planning ahead to meet your Filipina for the very first time, or perhaps you've met her before but are really missing each other, then now is the time to start preparing. We must know that when flights resume, air travel will no doubt be rather different to what we knew before. Who knows at this stage what it will really look like, but possibly there'll be more in-depth screening at airports around taking your temperature, which of course may mean more delays at airports and getting through customs. But even before you fly out, I believe the possibility of getting a medical clearance from your doctor will also be very likely, until at least they get a vaccine, which who knows when that will be or if at all. Once on the plane, people may not be packed in like sardines, like we were previously, and may be spaced out far more, which may not be a bad thing. After all, I'm sure many of us have stories of being uncomfortable in some way or another on the long haul to the Philippines. And if you do have some stories that you'd like to share with the community, be sure to pop them in the comments, as it would be great to hear some of those stories. But being that planes won't be anywhere near capacity, does that mean flights to the Philippines will be more expensive, much in the same way flights currently are to bring people back to their own countries? Some people are reporting paying $6,000 for a one-way ticket home on what otherwise may have been a few $100s pre the virus. It's only my personal opinion, but I do tend to think that once flights resume, many airlines will keep fares at a reasonable price to encourage people to fly again, even if the airline makes barely any profits. But as the months move forward, if there is no vaccine, then we may see price increases on those flights. But really, as I say, that's pure speculation at this point in time, and what we need to be concerned with is all the things that we can control ourselves. So you'll be prepared when the time comes. And most importantly at this stage, you want to keep working on the relationship together as it stands at this current time. If you're chatmates or in a dating relationship or even marriage, then you really need to keep being positive with each other and don't stop learning about each other. And even start thinking to yourself about what the future may hold as a couple. It really is important right now to keep the dream alive and to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I do know that many of you are doing exactly this because you guys have been telling me so over the last 6 or 7 months. So a big high five to all you couples out there who are enhancing your relationship and keeping the dream alive. Now, as I say, we can be sure in 2021, dating a Filipina will be different, not just around getting to the Philippines to be together, but also once you're in the Philippines. People still need to be very careful, at least until a safe vaccine is found for the virus, especially the older guys or those with underlying conditions. So the hand hygiene, social distancing and wearing of face masks will certainly be a must when we first go back to the Philippines. We may be required to use phone apps when checking into places like a restaurant or even to a mall, much like the ones we currently have in Australia. And I really do expect that if they're not already in place in the Philippines, they'll certainly become commonplace. But it's really not an issue because those apps are very simple to use and hardly take any time. And by the time the Philippines opens to tourists again, I believe there'll be no 10 or 14 day quarantine period, as that would really defeat the purpose of going to the Philippines. And I do believe that when the Philippines reopens again, people will need to make their own determination around whether to go or not, rather than being told that you can't go by any government. And as I say, I do believe that governments will need to make this decision very soon, as they simply can't afford the economic effects on the country for any sustained period of time. So be sure to use this time you have, guys, however many months it may be, to keep your relationship going and to plan your next visit. Things like where you may be staying, where you may go, what parts of the Philippines do you want to see, and so on. You have time now to start jotting down ideas and almost create an itinerary of sorts and run it by your Filipina to see what she thinks. You may also want to think about what vaccinations may be required prior to going and how long do you need to have them before you fly out. And if you need to organise good travel luggage, then you may get good bargains on those right now rather than waiting until everyone is buying them again. And for those of you that may want to take a bit of a punt around flights, you can get some flights in March and April, for example, that are very reasonably priced. But the downside is that if the Philippines doesn't open up, then you'll need to move your flights to later in the year. But for those of you that want to get in early, then be sure to check out my very own comparison travel website where you can save a lot of money on flights anywhere in the world at holidayescapetravel.com. The link is in the description. Whilst things will certainly be different in 2021, there's no doubt we all have so much more to look forward to. So be sure to start planning things out and be ready for a much brighter 2021. And let's keep our fingers crossed that the borders will reopen and the flights will start roaring back into the Philippines for us tourists. If you want more valuable information and tips around what it takes to have a successful relationship with a Filipina, then be sure to check out my playlist on screen now. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.